it is going to be your boy Kiwian over here going up against Ket, I believe.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome to see. I really am excited for Kiwian because early days RTS players, we believe in one thing: build economy, defend, build the wall. We all played RTS campaigns growing up. What was our favorite levels? It's the hold out, survive one. Defend the Zerg in the third StarCraft one mission with your bunkers and your Marines. Um, uh, what was that? I'm sure there was the Warcraft 3 where you're defending the waves of undead with Arthas. There's so many of these levels where people love that. People like to build economy, play proper defensive. When you're ahead, get more ahead, build a lead sort of RTS. Kiwian, on the other hand, says, or I can just go kill the other guy. And he's really good at it.
Absolutely. Getting into it. First game of the series. And we're going to be spawning with Kel over in the top right-hand side as our Infernal player. And again, it's going to be Infernal versus Vanguard.
Kel, you're only British compatriot in the tournament, mate. So, going to be excited to see how he goes. Do you naturally cheer for him? That way, we can kind of be on opposite sides here, man.
You know what, Brits. Yeah, I do cheer for those mad lads, even though I'm more of a Swede these days, to be honest, Pig. More of a Swede. Can't you tell by my accent?
Oh, definitely. Your obsession with Max Burger and pickled herring has definitely, it's showing. You're no longer getting drunk and being obnoxious in public like British people are known for.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I love it when people think of British people. They're like, oh, it's classy, right? Like James Bond and stuff. And I'm like, no, it's like a builder going to the pub, falling over
They
in the
haven't
middle of
been
the
to a
street.
Spanish resort town in the summer, mate.
Yeah, no, they haven't at all. Kiwian did go for a little bit of Therium to start things off, and then goes and makes his expansion with 3 boosted bolts. So definitely interesting, and makes me think that he definitely has something up his sleeve.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see. Very, very, very interesting. I mean, Kiwian, I've seen so many tower rushes. I haven't actually cast any of his games or watched any in this version. So we'll see, how he's changed. Obviously, he has a very fast expand up. He's just kind of doing the dog blocking at the start, which the Gaunt and the Imp managed to chase him off. We've got the Conclave into an Iron Vault, which does, of course, allow you to build brutes. The dog, of course, can be very aggressive here. And the reason is you can always go back and eat those flowers here on Broken Crown. So no doubt Kiwian will be going back, eating some flowers with the doggo, and then getting back into the action. And behind it, we should be seeing... In the previous version, you didn't need a barracks to build a hangar and go air units. But he has started his first production facility now. So I think at his ramp, we'll see what Kiwian's going for in a moment. And there we go, at his barracks. I think they probably patched that anyway. It was kind of funny watching someone literally go straight for tier 2 and then air units without actually having a barracks. That was kind of a bit of a meme.
A little bit of a meme. I'm still very curious what he's going to do with that Therium, because he mined quite a bit of it early on, and depending on what he really chooses to go for, whether it's like very fast Hornets like we saw from Probe on this map, and I mean, this was a very good map for that too, because it is a little bit wiggledy and windy to get across things, and you can start creeping, but Kiwian's doing a good job of just making sure he knows where these Gaunts are going, and so far, he's spotted where they're going. Over to this camp. Doesn't mean he can stop them with his little dog, but just making sure he's aware of what his opponent's doing and what units he's actually coming out with as well.
And his build's very confusing. I was basically trying to scratch my head how I could sound smart breaking down Kiwian's build, but he's mined so much Therium now for so long, and he's spent none of it, and I'm not the only one confused. There's Probe and a few other pro players in the chat going, oh, what is this Kiwian build? Does this make sense? I have no idea what he's doing. So thankfully, it's not just us being bad casters, Ben. No one knows what he's doing, apparently, as he does start a structure there. I think he's going hangar. I imagine he's just built up a lot of Therium for hangar.
I'm as confused as you, Piggy. Like, I'm definitely one of those guys that I mean, it is going to be for Hornets. Like, it has to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else you can really do from there. I mean, you can get the dropship as well, but feels like it might be a little bit early for that, and maybe not too necessary. Just a weird way of going about things.
I've got an explanation. So he was going to rush it really fast. Because he saw Kel build so many units, he thought Kel was going to rush across the map. So he's gone and reactively built a barracks and a sentry post at the front going, oh, I got to build this to defend. Kel's just creeping. Kel's not even going for him. And he's like, damn it, I delayed my hanger for no reason. So I feel like Kiwian's played a little bit scared in the opening stage. I could be wrong on that, of course. But I'll have to ask him after the game's over. I'll shoot him a message to see how that goes. Already going to ambush the gaunts. We got the shield, which he hasn't used just yet on that. He could sit there and fight if he wants to pop the shield, Kiwian, but he might want to save it.
Yeah, interesting way that he's gone about this. I prefer what Probe did with his turret here. Like, I know this is a defensive turret because he's worried about being attacked, but eventually if he puts a turret by his hanger, if he goes double hanger this game, which we've seen a lot of people commit, you can get the healing going very nice on those bad boys.
And the dog gets an imp that was coming to chop down the trees to try and open up Kiwian's back door. So he was going to try and open up the left so that Kel could bypass the post at the front, the wall off there, and just run up the back door. But Kiwian's been so active with his dog, and I'm sure he's got a big smile on his face right now after denying that attempt. Kel is forced to simply take a third base. Oh, Imp's trying to transfer back to the main, getting caught by these two Hornets. Kiwian's having a good time. Hornets, a fantastic unit, recently heavily nerfed. But that is, of course, after being heavily buffed. I've seen a lot of people every time we see Hornets in the chat going, why are they building Hornets? They got nerfed. You got to realize they had a giant buff right before that. So it is, everything's relative in this game, and things change very quickly. The Gaunt's not the strongest anti-air unit. They don't want to fight the shield. There's just no point. You're not going to get through 1,000 hit points. You just have to wait the 10 seconds until it disappears.
Yeah, pretty amazing play, honestly. Oh, when I say amazing play, he's getting good damage done. Like, these Hornets have been so damn valuable, and he's using those bobs to repair those fellas as well. So they're going to get back out on the field. I think he's aware that there is a third base going on from Kel. A lot of the players have been very good about getting through that wood line and just taking a third there, nice and defensive. Kiwian also getting a ground army out there, so not a one-trick pony in this game by any means.
Yeah, getting the creep value. Vision cap always just gives you that comfort level, having that bit of vision on the map as well there. Kiwian hasn't gone for a third base just yet. Of course, the Hornet investment is very heavy, and I think it makes sense. Go up to, 6 to 8 Hornets. Oh, sure, first Shadow Flyer does connect. Good cancel by Kel. Gets the 18 out of 25 Luminite back, but more importantly, saves the Imp to start rebuilding that. But Kiwian goes straight back in, and he's going to snipe it down, so very well done. Both players having a bit of the back and forth, and a big fight on that right side.
This is a nice flyback to the hangar, but losing 2 of those Hornets definitely takes a bit of the wind out your sails as the Hornet guy, because you definitely want to keep it going, and big connection there.
Yes! Oh, he gets 2! Dude, that is crazy. That's a big one, yeah. You see, in the previous game, it was always 3 or 4 Hornets could go out and intercept and just easily shoot it down, but similar to, I'm thinking of so many different other RTSs where you invest heavily in a tech unit for harassment and map control early, and you need to preserve the unit count. And it's definitely that way with Hornets. You want to grow that number over time and get them up. That's what we saw Probe dominate with in the previous series. In this series, you've already lost 4, I believe, maybe 5 Hornets. It almost shuts down that stage of the game, and it's like, well, why even bother investing in more? At this point, just swap into Ground Army and play a more generic game, but you've lost the impetus and the control that hangar opening had given you. So definitely an unfortunate turn of events for Kiwian. Great defense by Kel, relying on those Shadow Flyers and being much quicker to pull onto Therium than some of the previous opponents that have been overrun by the Hornets.
Yeah, I think Kel has done a very good job managing his economy, not taking too much damage from the Hornets, and just, in general, being on top of things. Like, he just looks very complete. And now this army as well, it's got it all, hasn't it? It's got the Brutes, it's got the Gaunts, it's got the Shadow Flies as well to deal damage. Lovely bubble on that turret. That will soak up a lot of damage. And these Hornets getting absolutely torn apart by the Shadow Flyers. And maybe that was all Kel was looking for here. Forcing out a few abilities here and there and taking out even more of those Hornets. Now his economy's just going to be left untouched. Even getting a little bit of a Lancer over here for his trouble.
And just remember that a bubble, just to be clear, is from the depot. It's from the habitat. It's a rampart upgrade rather than the solar habitat, the one that does the production boost. It effectively triples the hit points of that tower. Kel just waited for it to wear off and is like, I'm back. You can't do that again for a very long time. So he's going to go straight back in there. Lancer turrets are great. You can see they bounce those buzzsaw attacks all over the place. One of them's going to go down very quickly, though. There's just not many units on the ground. Trying to tech up into Vulcans was Kiwian, but he's caught with so few units right now. You can see the Vulcan is doing good damage, but it's not really got a lineup of units to shoot right now. He's going to try and put a bubble on it and repair. One Vulcan, is it enough to defend this entire army? Well, with the buzzsaw turret on the left, chewing through the feeds and gaunts, it might just barely be enough. The shield on the Vulcan and the Buzzsaw turret on the left. I cannot believe he's hanging on.
I can't believe it either. This was a miraculous hold, and those Hornets coming in as well. Microing against these Shadow Flyers over here. Kiwian holds. Now, we can't pretend it didn't cost him nothing, but because he had to use a lot of bobs, right, just to get stuff going. But that was definitely nice play out of that Vulcan. And Kel, he was so damn committed to this attack, man. Like, he's still on 3 bases behind all this as well.
Yeah, because he could have taken into advantage there, kept denying bases and stuff. Pushed in. I thought it was a good idea initially looking at it. Talking to the players, they've all said, hey, overall, we're so inexperienced at this game compared to the games we played thousands and thousands of hours of. Sometimes you overcommit and you lose games. And the only way to really learn, this is something Probe said to me earlier today. He said, the only way you learn how to not overcommit is by overcommitting and going, that was dumb. I will learn next time to be more careful in that position and just take another expansion. And it's very hard to judge these fights and these situations this early on. So I thought it was a great fight for Kel at the start of it. Of course, the tail end of the fight went very well for Kiwian. And I don't think it's a massive lead for Kiwian in terms of like supply, but it might be the quality of his supply that's getting a little bit ahead because, you're building Vulcans, you're going to see Medtechs in there soon. It's definitely a high quality army. And I don't know if we've seen the same level like of Weavers. We haven't really seen Hellborn Weaver yet for Kel, none of those late game units.
No, he's been very much about just kind of stabilizing, getting a decent armor out. And now he's starting to get those Magmadons as well. Like, those have been the real bread and butter of all the Infernal armies, I feel. Just getting on top of things, causing a ruckus, dealing good AoE damage. And as he starts to keep on advancing, and I've been looking at the minimap, he's got workers on absolutely everything here. Lots of Therium, so most likely going to continue teching up, and he's taking his 4th base as well.
By the way, update on that earlier question in the first series about the Infest, DeMu. Seems to be the consensus that the Infest does not do damage to Lancers. It does get blocked completely, even though it obviously still spawns a Fiend if they die with it on them, and therefore there is no proccing of their buff. But it's just because the Gaunt bounces kind of bounce around. I think it bounces twice, so I think you're hitting 3 Lancers with each Gaunt attack. You've got 10 Gaunts in there. Each volley, that's 30 Lancer buffs, assuming all the bouncers are hitting Lancers. Right? Obviously spread across the Lancers, but still, you can kind of see why that, plus Fiends attacking very quickly on the ground. It blossoms very quickly. That's why the Lancers get so tanky.
Ooh, that was really nice shield. But, still gets 2 Hornets for his trouble. And those Hornets, not only are they fairly expensive, they take a long time to build. And they're really, really good when they get like 8+, where they can really go somewhere and deal a lot of damage and force reaction. But Kel's done a very good job of keeping that count low, but this number of Vulcans here... Ooh, he's got the Pulley Boys as well!
Oh, sick Weavers. They do 20% of your max life in damage with their pull, and then they also punch you for 10% of your max life. So, very bad at killing small units. Like, they're useless versus dogs, for instance. It's hilarious. They punch them 10 times, kill them. They're great against the Vulcans. They got to pull them in, though. Magmadon's trying to charge in. The Stompies are doing good with their Stampedes. You can see as the Vulcans get pulled in, they do take damage pretty quickly. The Nano Swarm, though, is very fast at healing, but as long as the Weavers focus fire, they can take them down quite quickly and really using those Weaver pulls so well. Kel is fighting this very nicely. I'm very impressed with his fight. If he can get one more Magmadon Stampede off, I think he crushes this army and might be able to finish this game off.
That was very nice of him. The fact that he was fighting that whole fight on the Shroud as well. I know it's not a hell of a lot, but getting to get that shield, continuously regen on your units. Hey, no more units shoot up from Kel. I mean, this is obviously a little bit spicy. I mean, Infernals can pop out a good few of those Shadow Flyers at a time to maybe deal with this, but you can imagine right now how different this scenario would have been if he kept a large amount of those Hornets alive. He'd have been in a lot of trouble.
Might need to see some Hellspawn Resurgence if he doesn't have any charges, or it could be the Therium being the limiting factor for Kel. Keep in mind, your Therium mining is actually a bit slower as Infernal, unless you build shrines right up against them, because you can't build the Scrapyard right next to the Therium. Kiwian is expanding a lot. I felt like that fight was pretty bad for him. Like, Kel was ahead, attacked, took a bit of a poor fight, was on the back foot. But now Kiwian took a bit of a poor fight. The thing is, I think Kiwian's slightly ahead on the expansion momentum, but Kel quickly double expands on the left, trying to catch back up, and he's building a high-tech army himself, so we are seeing a bit of proper late game. Shroudstone's going down everywhere. It's kind of funny, the late game we've seen all the top players just putting Shroudstones all over the map. Trying to bait him, but nice micro for Kel. Good spreadies, though, and one shield tank on one of those Shadow Flyers. Gotta go home and heal soon, though. Ooh.
He's staying for a long time, isn't he? He's really not about getting in this double Ethereum camp here, where it's like he's going to get one of those as well. That's an amazing job.
Weavers are so tanky, dude. They're not meant to be able to kill them. They're so expensive. There come the Shadow Flyers. It looks like he either got some more air production up or used the Hellspawn Resurgence on that, using a bunch of his Animus. 40 Animus, very expensive. If you do keep using your Animus on all these like low tier, mid tier abilities, you never get up to the Flayed Dragon, as that thing is 500 Animus, I believe now. It was 400 previously. I think it's 500? No, 300. It's 300 Animus, but it costs 500 Luminite and 500 Therium, I think, is if memory serves. So it's incredibly expensive, but you need to save up for it. And when you get it, the Flayed Dragon is like a one-man harassment, hurricane. It comes in and just wrecks bobs, spawns lots of fiends. Very annoying unit, either as a harassment unit or as a supporting unit in the big battles.
Ooh, Hornet's finding a nice, fairly exposed Therium line here, but a super tower is dropped immediately and deals with those Hornets fairly nicely as well. Kiwian starting to move to the center of the map over here, taking some of those bases, and we're getting to a point right now where it's very, very much turning into a split map scenario. And how is Kiwian going to deal with these very high-tech units that are available here?
Dell's got, Shroud Stones nicely for map control. The Shadow Flyers aren't really useful, nothing that shoots up here. He's got to be careful though, with no Hellborn, there's not really any long-range units. It's all about the Weavers pulling the Vulcans in, and the Magmadons, of course, stomping the Lancers down. Atlas is starting to come in for Kiwian. He's got an evac. I think it's got 2 Atlases inside it. Remember, Atlases can drop in siege mode. They are very powerful units.
Very cool positioning as well behind this tree line, and they don't yet have the AoE floor ability afterwards, but looks like the Weavers are trying to get close to maybe pull something close, but oh my goodness, the positioning from Kiwian. It is just huge, man. Big tramples going into the middle of that Vanguard army, though. So much damage being done on both sides.
This is a crazy fight. The Atlas has already cleared so many of the little units, though. There's almost no infest on this army. And it feels like there's just not enough damage. The Flayed Dragon coming in behind. The Vulcans aren't really dying. The Vulcan Medtech just hanging on. The Medtech's finally starting to get taken down by the Flayed Dragons. These Atlases do friendly fire, but they're not really hitting their own units that much. And that was a successful engagement for Kiwian. Weaver does pull 1 unit to the low ground, but it feels like Kel here just didn't have the time to have these top left 2 bases really pay for themselves. The army was too small. So many Shroud Stones were getting kind of sniped here, and a lot of money had been spent, especially all the Therium on those Shadow Flyers. Vulcan charges into that Therium line as well to the low ground. There's not a lot of anti-air to deal with the Flayed Dragon, but I don't think Kiwian cares. He's happy to push in and just try to find this damage. If he can get rid of this Shrine on the Therium, he's looking pretty good, but the Magmadon charges, man, big stampedes.
Oh, lovely pickup micro on these Atlas as well, keeping them alive, still dealing a lot of damage, and that Flayed Dragon is pumping out damage here. Not too much can shoot it, and I mean, it really is kind of the saving grace here. It's just been here for most of the fight, dealing good damage. You're going to need some Exos or Hornets to deal with that, and poof, does splat just like that. And Kiwian, I think he's broke through here, but still a lot of reinforcements coming out from Kel.
Interestingly, mixed into the Hedgehogs. Hedgehogs do bonus to heavy, so they're great against Magmadons, and I would imagine the Flayed Dragon's heavy as well, so I'm not sure if their anti-air attack gets the same thing. They have very long anti-air range. So mixing in a few Hedgehogs, not a bad idea, even though it normally is an early kind of mid-game map control unit. Those Atlas shots, dude, Gaunt's walking into Atlas shots is not pretty. Infernal players, shut your eyes. Don't let your kids see this screen. That is absolutely brutal. And Kiwian, my boy, comes on in after a very action-packed game. That was back and forth and very exciting, but he manages to clinch it at the end of game 1.
Wasn't easy, was it? Like, I actually felt that Kel got himself into a decent spot early on, and then he did that big 3-base push. That one Vulcan, the hero Vulcan, that really held off the whole attack single-handedly was absolutely a saving grace for Kiwian there. So very, very cool game out of both of them. The army compositions that they both went for, we're seeing very similar thing out of the Infernal players, although Kel here went for a lot of those Fiends as opposed to the Hellborns in the back line. And Kiwian here, I love that Atlas drop behind that wood line. That was just absolutely gorgeous from him.
Yeah, they came in at just the right time. I mean, Kel didn't have a chance for the bases to really pay off. I think maybe Kel's best play there was to like pull back, maybe give up that Therium base and like go for a bit of a counter attack, but try to buy time in some way, because if you don't have any like Hellborn up there, your Weavers can't quite get in range. That can be very tough. He did have a bunch of Shadow Flyers, so you can imagine if he wasn't so surprised by it, there's a play where Kel blows up the evacs with the shadow flyers, so the atlases aren't as maneuverable. And then they've got to either slowly siege up and walk towards you, or come around from a different angle. Buys you a lot of time. Also, if you manage to bring those in as they're inside the evac and blow it up, that of course is like the huge money payoff. Actually, no, because in this game the units pop out of the evac when it dies, I believe. So I was thinking it would be like some other games where the units just, if they're inside the transport, but I think they would actually get dropped on the ground. Advantage though, if you do that over a forest, I'm pretty sure the units just get stuck in the forest until you chop them down.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, definitely. I like a lot from this game, man. I liked a lot. Like the fights were cool. The way that Kel dealt with the aggression as well, with all those hornets, it was just smart. And maybe it's one of those things where he's kind of kicking himself that he wasn't more macro-y and like took a fourth base a little bit faster and all that jazz. And maybe when you see such big armies like that, getting those Hellborns online is an absolute game changer. Like some of the games that I saw yesterday of Elazer, it was a lot about the Magmadons, like a lot about the Magmadons, just coming in, dealing lots of damage, but then boom, those Hellborns behind it all as well, just being very, very vicious. But yeah, cool approach that he had, and very, very nice to see as well.
Yep, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in game 2, and if there's anything cheekier coming out, of course, in the next one. Jagged Maw, cheeky, probably a good highlight of that. We'll see exactly what comes in. We've seen Shroud Stones proxy to take out the siege camps. Take both of those, go win with a big 1-base push. We've seen 2-base siege camp pushes. We've seen Shroudstone on the high ground above the Luminite Mine proxied while rallying Gaunt, Brute across the map. We've basically seen just a lot of aggressive play. And like we said, I think it was day 1 of the big qualifier, the big initial qualifier. It was like a 24% win rate for Vanguard versus Infernal. So Infernal seems to be the guys who are taking those siege camps, using them to win the games for the most part. But if anyone's going to find a way to take those siege camps first and do something dirty with it, it'll be Kiwian.
Definitely. He definitely took on a slightly different approach to his build order, and you kind of pointed out that he was kind of scared of an attack, so maybe switched it up a little bit, but the end goal was to get Hornets out. This feels like a map that you can potentially do that. And I mean, that siege unit does not shoot up, so you absolutely have a chance. And getting out the Shadow Flies, it's going to be tricky to do in time as well. Maybe he actually goes to some complete blind counter to it, but we also have to take into account what we saw from Snoxar against Probe, where it's that tower on the high ground and just got a push going, and it was worked wonders, didn't it?
Yep. That was pretty brutal, man. The fiends surrounding the first Lancer there. Brutal. But going into Jagged Maw again here, it's going to be game 2 between these two players. And we, of course, will be starting up here in the top right. We've got Kel, our British beast. And in the bottom right, we've got Kiwian, the Korean monster, an aggressive player famous from the start of StarCraft 2. And he did recently say he was changing his name back to Top because, and I quote, Tasteless and Artosis can't pronounce my name. So Nick and Dan, you're out there somewhere. You guys have forced him to change his name, and yet we still see his name's Kiwian. He signed up to the tournament as Kiwian, hasn't changed his name. So I don't know what's happening. I saw people in chat saying he has to win the tournament before he's allowed to do it. They're going to be casting him, I think, on the final day, so he better sort it out before then. Otherwise, there's going to be some mixed messages.
I've seen his in-game name. He is playing with the name Top, okay? So this overlay, what's he up to here? Chopping down this wall. Wait. Okay, I was like, one chop and then run back, but he's going to go through the middle here. Pretty nice and quickly. Do you think this is one of those tower rushes you talked about here, Piggy? I mean, it's a very fast Lancer on the go as well.
Yeah, be really cool. I don't think we still have offensive Bob Overcharge being banned, but okay. That'll do the trick. Sentry post right in front of the siege camp, and he's just going to use the repair. So I guess the idea here is basically you just push with 1 Rax Lancer plus a siege catapult, and you just try to win with that. Kel's going for an expand. Infernal doesn't have any scouting at the start, right? So he has no idea this is coming. What we've seen every game on this map is it's the Vanguard player who just fast expands and tries to survive. Kiwian turning that upside down, he is going to do his own way of creeping this very powerful camp very early, get all the money, get the catapult, and then kick butt.
It's a funny way that he's going about it as well. I mean, that sentry, if he can take out these back units, maybe then he can just keep the repair going forever. And the damage is pretty decent from the single Lancer as well, isn't it? Second Lancer does show up here. We'll start dealing even more damage, and this is nice. I'm already very excited about this, because we've also got to remember, he's going for it on his opponent's side. Like, this will hit his opponent so damn quickly.
Chickens are going to be going down. Remember, you don't have to walk over the catapult and take it straight away. You can actually pull back and maybe even take the other one and then take it. But I think he's just going to take it as fast as possible, because you don't want to let that expansion pay off for your opponent, right? And you can see these guys. Look at this. Keller just has no idea. Going for a speed camp right now. That's the last thing you want to be doing. He's going to be separated from his own base, which means his Gaunts are going to have to run through catapults and Lancers to get home to defend. Oh, this might just be a 2-0 for Kiwian. This is a brutal push. Let's see what Kel can pull together to defend it. He's got no Shroudstone, no meat farm on the expansion. He may need to pull back to the high ground. He's in a lot of trouble.
This is so funny, man. This is so funny. I mean, that thing does a lot of damage. I mean, these Fiends, if they get on top of that catapult, can start dealing quite a bit of damage, right? And I mean,
yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think he left that way too exposed here. This is already a nice little shutdown from Kel.
Oh no! That's like, he's already getting ready to creep the other one, though. Oh, but he didn't do much damage. I think he only killed like one imp and damaged the shrine. So, you know what? I was like, oh, he's going to be in a bad position, is Kel. I think Kiwian just didn't expect him to come from that angle. He thought he was up in his main base. So, Kiwian, yeah, that was a big loss for him. He does have an expansion up. So, I guess we could argue this is a heavy pressure, not an all-in. It does seem very committed, but at the end of the day, the main investment is the 2 Bobs. He's only built 4 or 5 Lancers. He doesn't have an upgrade for them, anything like that. So it's kind of hard to calculate, you know, how much damage he needs to do to even this out.
Yeah, I mean, he's on 2 bases behind this. It's not as if it was Giga all in. Like, he had his backup plan for if it did not work out as well as he wanted to. But you can guarantee that he wanted that to work out a lot better. And, bit of a creep jack going on over here. And that is a lot of Gaunts. Taking down that sentry is taken out. And now, Kiwian's fighting on 2 sides, and this tactic of his, I mean, those Gaunts, they don't last a long time against these Lancers. I'm getting a little bit of a freeze on my end of things, but okay, things are going again. Whole army absolutely melted.
No upgrade for the Lancers. You see such a difference, right? Normally it's like the Gaunts with every attack, they make the Lancers temporarily stronger, and it's like, oh god, you almost don't want to attack. But if the upgrade's not done, hey, you can just unleash, and now the catapult is going in the other direction. Infernal, are they about to continue that ridiculous win rate on Jagged Maw? Maybe he's even building a forward tower. Oh, Kel, get in the face of Kiwian. Kiwian trying to build layered sentry posts here to hang on, anything to hold on, but man, he's just getting obliterated. And look at how much damage that catapult does. It also hits all of the repairing Bobs there. Mass Fiend spawns out of them. Kiwian shows us how to take the siege camp as Vanguard in an awesome way. Unfortunately, achieves nothing with it, and Kill just walks back, kills the catapult, loses a single imp, and then counterattacks and crushes him. So Jagged Maw continues to give us, I honestly think, the peak of the RTS experience, Ben. This here is
I mean, I would have loved to see that if he wasn't so committed with absolutely every Lancer that he had, right? Like, just diving into that Luminite line there, and it was just like, mate, he's leaving it so damn exposed here. He was not quite prepared for which angle Kel was going to come from, and yeah, a bit of fun tactic, but I would have loved to see it how it could have went, you know, if he actually was prepared and had just a few Lancers, because I think that would have genuinely been quite hard to hold for Kel.
I wonder if you can repair the catapult as well, because I was a bit surprised that he was clearly not committing that much. Like, I kind of would have liked to see him build sentry posts with it, repair the catapult, if that's a thing. I don't know if that's possible or not. But he was already building a sentry post at the second siege camp and expanding. So Kiwian was like, it's a fake catapult push, man. Like, I'm kind of I'm going to do some damage, scare you a bit, and then I'm not really committing. But obviously that backfired super hard. So it was like one of those 300 IQ ideas. And the thing about 300 IQ RTS strategies is they're usually just an inch from going too high. And when you go to 301, I don't know if you guys know how IQ works. It goes back past 0 to 1 IQ. So unfortunately, it looks like that happened in that game.
Absolutely did. I mean, rough. I mean, Kel, to be fair to him, he was very quick to just be like, I'm going to get on the catapult. I'm going to sort you out. I'm going to do this. And counterattacked very nicely. Then there was that creep jack went down, stole his catapult for himself. Just a series of unfortunate events there for Kiwian. And now we've got a third map between them. And so far, it's been a lot of that grove map, the secret grove in the middle there. And they've been absolutely, I would say, throughout this series, pretty damn evenly matched. And both of them had to have been looking at this bracket as, oh my god, I'm running into him in the first round. Because, yeah, they're playing some damn good Stormgate over here.
Heck yeah, mate. And I think it's cool to see the difference from the start of yesterday, where we had like, Dark, who was very new to the game and figuring things out, trying to mass Hellborn on 2 base. And today we've had obviously these guys who are like, Probe looked so clean other than the Jagged Maw loss in that first series. It was just like, everything's so finely tuned. This series, a very back and forth, and like both players going at each other's throats. Besides, I mean, the only thing we could criticize here is like players have overextended a few times in game 1 and game 2, but it's tied up 1-1, which is exactly what we love to see. A close series, and it's always fun to kind of figure out what's going to happen in the third map and where they go from there. I'm interested because from what we've seen, we haven't seen I don't think we saw a single Hellborn out of Kel. Does seem like more of an early mid-game enjoyer. Does like is creeping and that sort of thing. And I imagine we're going to have a return to Hornet play in this third game. So are we going to see him shut it down as effectively as he did in game 1? And if so, is there like a better follow-up? Or is Kiwian after game 1 just like, nah, no way am I playing Hornets. I took way too many Shadow Flyer hits. My Hornets kept getting blown up. There's kind of like a lot of decisions that have to be made right now before that third map starts.
No, after seeing the Hornet play, that's obviously been very good. And it does feel if there is one weakness to Infernals, it's the fact that their anti-air seems rather limited. Or at least, they put a lot into getting those Shadow Flyers out, and they're a bit later on. But we're going to get right on into it. I just wanted to say, I enjoyed that probe opening where he did the Lancer attack. Like, a lot of Lancers out very quickly, and he really managed to just throw his opponent totally off just by being in their face, being aggressive, and it did a lot of damage, man.
So Kiwian in the bottom left now of Hinterlands, Kel in the top right. Kiwian's looking for the drops with his dog, but he missed the one in the bottom right side of the map, and you can see those little tiny white dots on the map. Some of those Ethereum patches, I don't know if the resource pickups actually show up on this map. Not sure. I think he found one. I think there's maybe a few more. Anyways, he's just going to pressure now. The Conclave is almost up. Very standard kind of one Conclave expand for Kel. And it looks like the dog's not going to hang around to block the expand. Kiwian's going to go hunting for those mini resource pickups. Now, those resource pickups, I say resource pickup, people are like, oh my gosh, really? You just run your dog around, you get free resources? It's like 10, 20 Luminite? I think it's like 10. Yeah, there we go. 20 Luminite or like 10 Therium. It's pretty minor, and there's like a few of them around the map. So it's not something that's going to massively move the needle. And part of me almost wonders if it's just more worth it to block the expansion for 10 or 15 seconds and be annoying. Because otherwise, as we can see, Kel just gets the shrine down for free. Bit of a smooth opening for him.
No, definitely. I like what Kiwian did, though. It's funny watching him play, man. Like, his build so far, like, the other Vanguard players were all about, okay, I'm going to boost 4 Bobs, they're going to run down, make the expansion. What I've seen from Kiwian is, I'm going to have one guy in Ethereum early on, then I'm going to send 3 Bobs boosted to go build the expansion, and then this game he's like, you know what, Therium again, going to have 2 Bobs go and build the expansion. Very different things out of him, and it feels a lot of it is very, very freestyly out of him.
Indeed. Well, we're going to see the speed build get used again there for a double barracks follow-up, so wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those Lancer timings that you were wishing for, Ben. That'd be pretty cool. Seen a few of those. Of course, Gaunt's here just kiting the speed camp. The angry goats. These goats work a bit more like you'd expect. You were talking yesterday about how you got surprised by the moose shooting rockets out of their heads at you, but I think pretty sure these guys just headbutt you, which is I'm pretty sure that's lore accurate to real life.
Yeah, all these things are, most of these things are placeholders, so we'll maybe eventually turn to other things. I do hope those deer turn into other things, because the fact that a rocket was launching out, killing my little scouts, that I felt like I put so much into. Yeah, it was definitely a little bit brutal. Kiwian just, managing his eco quite nicely here. I'm very curious. Oh, it is going to be these Lancers, so getting those out pretty damn rapidly. 2 barracks up at the same time, and that's going to be a mech one. Yeah, so he's going to get the upgrade for these very quickly. So I wanted it. I wanted something out of like pro from the Lancers because it seems so damn good.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to see. Going for the vision camp, I think, is Kiwian. Meanwhile, Kel goes for the second speed camp, getting lots of fiends out, preserving his units very well, and starting to establish a little bit more control. I don't know if we have a biokinetics lab up just yet. I think we do have one probably building, so we should see the Lancer upgrade starting in the near future, as that is such an important upgrade. But a fiend is actually scouting in Kiwian's base, which is something we don't see a lot of. Always cool to see that. Actually, players checking what's going on, going, okay, there's no Hornets this game. Don't really need to go onto Therium too heavily myself. Prepare with Shadow Flyers. You know, I could take a third base if I want to. However, Kel seems to be focused on getting in the face of Kiwian, getting across the map quite aggressively. You got to be careful, though, because remember, the moment that Lancer upgrade finishes, and you see the Biokinetics Lab spinning there, he will jump on top of the Gaunts and wreck them. You have to be very careful about overextending with these attacks. He takes the dog down, but seeing those Lancers, I think it's time for Kel to back off. This is a very risky attack.
It really is. Is the upgrade done for these Lancers just yet? They look very basic for now, but getting a few of them on top of these Gaunts, trying to keep them alive as well at all costs. Nice micro out of Kiwian. Nice micro out of both of them, actually. Once these Lancers do get that upgrade done, if he has it going, which I think is pretty close at this point, but the Gaunts will not stay alive for long, and the Brute is down as well.
Yeah, I mean, as he spawns more Lancers, you could actually go for the Gaunts there. Kiwian does barely pull those Lancers to the left. And remember, the Infest doesn't do damage. They reduce that. And you can see now that they're highlighted blue, the upgrade is done. The Lancers do get that buff. As they take the Gaunts down, that's great. And interestingly, he didn't use Overcharge or pull Workers at all there. And I was like, man, you definitely can't attack in if the Workers with Overcharge chase you off. But at the end of the day, you take out a couple Lancers. What do you achieve with that attack? Because I've seen a lot of that attack. You do keep him off a third base, but you do trade a lot of Gaunts for that, for maybe 2 or 3 Lancers at most. Cost for cost, it's not too far off an even trade, but I do feel like you've got to be cautious with the overextending. Still attacking right now. Oh, Kel gets a cancel on the base, which is great. Kiwian definitely needs to send these Lancers after the Gaunts, and as he does that, I think he can get a big advantage. Remember, you can also outrange the Brutes as well. Once you get rid of the Gaunts, you can actually kite backwards, because Brutes 1 range, Lancers 2 range, and that's what works really well for them.
Kel's so committed with this, man. Like, so committed. He's got a third on the way now. I don't know how close it is to finishing up over here. All right, about halfway done. That's at least nice. Something for him to fall back on. But I think he definitely caught Kiwian a little bit off guard here. Like, Kiwian, we saw what was happening. We'd have loved him to get a sentry up, put a bob in, get those Lancers nice and healed up, but it just didn't happen. More barracks being thrown down by Kiwian, and yeah, I feel that he is stabilizing to some degree, but he's definitely not super comfortable against this aggression that Kel just keeps on throwing at him.
Super small correction there, and I actually only figured this out about
is
a
it
week
just
or
for
two
mech
ago.
units?
It's only for mech units, but you can actually put the medtech inside the tower, and it has like a big healing aura, and it's amazing. But medtech's very expensive and like up the tech tree, so you need like tier 2 headquarters to build medtechs, which is why we we so rarely see it, because by that point you're like, oh, I have 5 medtechs, and we're all kind of roaming the map. So bit more rare of a situation. Here we go. Dude, Kel is just non-stop aggression. Kiwian, normally the one who's attacking all game, but is actually on the defense. And Kel in the face. But you can't fight in range of that buzzsaw. Now, Kiwian might attack his own base here to use the bounce. Yeah, you see? Yeah, very nice. This is something players realized they could use a while ago, because people kept being really annoying and just sticking out of range of it. But he's doing a lot of damage to his own building as well. So he does retarget it when the other units come in range, gets a nice bounce off. A couple of Exos coming in is really going to help against the Brutes. So you just... what I'd like to see from Kiwian a little more is maybe just grabbing a few of those Lancers and going after the Gaunts. I think that's one thing Probe we've seen do better than pretty much any other player, is he'll grab like a few of his Lancers. Like, there we go. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Just rip them to shreds. They go down so fast when those buffed Lancers are on top of them.
Yeah, and I mean, those Exos absolutely pile in a lot of damage as well, right? Like, just adds a new layer entirely. Super Tower is dropped here. Will fend off Kiwian. Very quick to pull back here. Now, Kiwian does have to be careful. Surely medics should be available fairly soon for him, but just going to go back, use that health camp as well. Nice play out of Kiwian. This is looking like he's in his comfort zone here now.
Yeah, if we could check the workers on like the third bases, especially for both sides, that'd be something that's really cool to check in on because you want to kind of see how much, how many workers there are on each one of those, and just to get an idea, because sometimes you see, oh, they're on 3 bases, but they don't really have many workers across those bases. We can see it looks like they're like neck and neck. The only difference might be in Therium mining, but even that, looking at the minimap, it looks like Kiwian maybe has like a few more workers on Therium. Other than that, it's very even economically. We're not seeing either player pull away. And this is going to teach us a lot as well about like what goes on in the mid to late game now, because last time, game 1, we saw it was like, there was a lot more Shroud Stones getting forced from the Hornet Harass, a lot more Shadow Flyers, all the Therium was going to that. Whereas I think Kel now, on 3 base, you're going to see Kel start going heavily into Therium, maybe even build a shrine next to one of the Therium patches, and start to go into Magmadons really heavily.
And it looks like Kiwian's brought a few bobs over here as well, just to get through, has a new attack path, and I mean, this is obviously going to be a bit annoying. Kel was decently prepared, had a few towers in position, but the amount of Exos in the mix now, like, these brutes are going to get absolutely torn apart. He needs some higher tech here, like a Magmadon or something.
I mean, it's so hard to escape in here. If Magmadon's flanked around the left and block your escape, it's so bad as the, the Kiwian player. Funnily enough, Kel is like, well, you kill my third, I'll take the middle. It's like, okay, I'm in a bad spot. You put me in a desperate spot, I will do the most dangerous gamble of them all. Good choice for Kel, but you do need those high-tech units that you were talking about, Ben. Magmadons, maybe, something like that to get on top. That Exo count is looking vicious. This is a scary moment in the game for Kel. He's gone Hellborn. The Hellborn, though, not as good against the Lancers as they are against the Exos. They do manage to focus fire, but dude, look at the micro. Kiwian gets on top there, and there's not quite the critical mass, and there's no meat shield for Kel just yet. Kel is getting overrun.
He certainly is. I mean, there's just Hellborn left, and they're great on the back line, but they're not great in the melee. And Kiwian, GG is called. He takes a series against Kel, and, that is something that I think a lot of people in chat didn't quite expect. You said Kiwian was one of your picks for the tournament, but a lot of people saw it as a very rough matchup for Kiwian going up against a player like Kel.
Yeah, and there we go. He does it because he's a beast, even after the bungled siege camp build. Kiwian is just very, very powerful, very experienced, and he brings such confident aggression. Very good in the early days of just about any game. He's a natural gamer, a fast learner. Kel played very well there, but I think we do see Infernal players entering this mid game in a very different situation to what they were a few weeks ago, right? The early game balance has changed up. And now we're seeing them challenged in a new way and finding the balance of when do I go Magmadons, when do I go Weavers, when do I go Hellborns? There's a lot of questions as Killer Pigeon joins us.
Thank you, boys. Amazing opening series, right? I think we had some great games here. I think we're going to start by dissecting the one we just watched, Kiwian versus Kel. Let's start with game 1, because that game to me was phenomenal. I think I noted down, it felt like a game of transitions. I think maybe out of all the games we've seen so far in this tournament, Pig, that might have been the perfect example of so many switches happening, right? Counter to counter to counter to get us in that late game. Also seeing Weavers being used, which I think no one was really anticipating them as the counter to Vulcans going into this.
It's cool because you hear theoretically, best tank and good at killing Vulcans, but they're so expensive. And how often do you get to the late game where you're like, oh, I've already got Magmadons and all the other tools I want? And we've seen a few more people. Not just a few. We've seen everyone prioritize Hellborn, right? Like pretty much everyone is like, once they get a big enough army, like let's get Hellborn up and try to use those to have some range superiority. But that was cool to see the Weaver mix in. I think they had a few fights where they did really well. I think he just wasn't ready for the Atlases in that game 1. That sort of, and those Atlas shots, man, when they land on the Gaunts and the small units, it is brutal.
Absolutely. And I mean, the cool thing about that idea of the Weavers as well is they changed it so that it's not a base damage now, it's percentage based, right? So tanky units get slapped pretty hard. But Ben, I want to ask you about that game number 2. I noticed the words dirty coming through your lips there, and I know there would have been a smile upon your face. That creeping tower on the high ground just completely dismantling game number 2 for Kiwian.
Yeah, that probe or that tower on the high ground definitely caused a reaction. And then one thing that his opponent kept doing against him was getting the fiends out, like using the brute, just turn them into fiends, getting there quicker. And I think that really caught probe off guard because then his bad boy got surrounded on the high ground, and it's like, well, I've got no units out to deal with this. It was a cool build because if he gets that Lancer in that turret, maybe we're looking at a totally different game.
And the reason I hop between the two series, because interestingly enough, when we looked at the reflection on the other side, I think like Jagan more so far opening this day has been defined by towers, right? That first series of Probe versus Snockstar, we saw the cheeky Infernal Tower on the high ground. And then game 2, things looked like it was going to be a 2-0 for Kiwi in there. That was a phenomenal opening pig, but looked like it was maybe a little bit too greedy out of our Vanguard player.
It's kind of funny because it was really reminiscent of a lot of the cheese experimentation I had in my own games where I'm like, this is going to be so clever, man. Like, I was doing a lot of builds where I was like, build a command post at their base, bring all my bobs, overcharge them, because you could do that on a command post the moment it starts, cancel it and kill them with bobs. And there's something I realized very quickly is like Lancers without the upgrade don't do much other than not die. Like they can kind of micro and survive for a long time. They don't do a lot of damage. So part of me is like, even if he defends the catapult in that game with the Lancers, can they even defend it that well? Like, they won't die themselves, but unless they can fully body block it, it's going to be pretty hard to keep it alive. So it's always a bit awkward doing a push that fast. I feel like if you're really committing, you have to basically build a bunch of towers at their base. That's like the way you really basically say, hey, you have to stop this right now. If these towers get up on your expansion, you're dead. And it seemed like Kiwian was more doing a fake out, and it just didn't seem to mesh at all, right? Because it's like, well, if you lose all the units with that kind of fake out push and are trying to expand behind it and go for another siege camp, you're way behind.